let us get one fundamental truth straight before we journey any deeper into tonight's discussion. Your arrival here was not a mere accident. The notion that you idly clicked on a thumbnail, or that some random digital algorithm casually fed you this specific presentation and you just happened to hit play, is entirely an illusion. That is the superficial narrative, and the superficial narrative rarely holds the actual truth. The profound reality is that your personal energetic signature, the quantifiable, electromagnetic frequencies constantly radiating outward from your physical vessel in a 360-degree sphere, underwent a significant transformation. This internal frequency altered well before you ever laid eyes on this content. It recalibrated in a highly precise manner, transforming your resonance and essentially making you magnetically visible to this exact frequency of knowledge. This recalibration took place simply because a deep-seated part of your consciousness already recognized that this evening was going to mark a monumental turning point. Over the course of the upcoming hour, I am going to meticulously break down the absolute mechanics behind this phenomenon. We will not be relying on fluffy metaphors or soothing spiritual platitudes. Instead, I will provide you with a meticulously precise, empirically supported, and scientifically grounded breakdown of exactly how your individual energetic aura behaves right before you cross the threshold of a major life transition. We will explore what this field transmits into the ether, what it magnetically pulls back into your orbit, and precisely why. Discovering the right message at the exact perfect second is never a stroke of blind luck. It is a state of deep vibrational alignment. It is your aura's coherence, a natural harmonic state orchestrated by your own heart when you stand on the precipice of a genuine paradigm shift. However, to truly grasp this, we must rewind to an unexpected starting point. We need to examine the specific activity of your energetic field roughly 3 days ago. Perhaps it was 3 days, perhaps it was a full week, or maybe it just happened earlier this very morning. A distinct, unexplainable quietness washed over you. I am not talking about a serene, meditative peace. I am referring to that other distinct silence, the kind where your daily routines suddenly feel like a hollow performance, and beneath the mundane surface, you sense an undeniable truth that a certain era is drawing to a close, or a fresh chapter is rapidly accelerating toward you, or perhaps both simultaneously. Since endings and beginnings are intrinsically the identical quantum event, you likely experience this as a physical, somatic symptom, a strange, dense pressure echoing in your chest cavity, right behind your breastbone, or perhaps lingering in the hollow where your collarbones meet your throat. It was not a physical ache, yet it was far from a comfortable sensation. It was a potent state of anticipation, a profound readiness with absolutely no outlet to express itself yet. That peculiar physical sensation you were navigating was literally your personal biofield, actively restructuring itself. And I state this in the most concrete, measurable, and literal way imaginable. The human heart actively projects a continuous electromagnetic aura. Let me be perfectly clear. This is not some unfounded esoteric claim. It is a rigorously documented, peer-reviewed, and scientifically quantifiable physical reality. Institutions such as the HeartMath Institute have dedicated decades since the early 1990s to analyzing cardiac electromagnetic emissions. Their research confirms that the heart's energetic pulse radiates anywhere from 8 to 10 feet outside your physical skin, expanding outward in every single direction. Moreover, this invisible boundary is far from dormant. It breathes, it pulsates, and it constantly fluctuates. Within its waveforms, it encrypts dense volumes of data regarding your current emotional baseline, the status of your central nervous system, your level of cardiac coherence, and your dominant vibrational state at any given fraction of a second. Consequently, whenever you are on the verge of a massive foundational shift in your life, whenever you are lingering at the doorway of an entirely new timeline, regardless of whether your conscious mind has labeled it as such, your field undergoes a highly predictable sequence. Initially, it plunges into a phase that quantum researchers refer to as low coherence. which acts as a necessary precursor before reorganizing itself into a vastly upgraded, higher coherence geometric pattern. That temporary state of low coherence is precisely responsible for that heavy quietness, that restless stagnation, and that unexplainable tension behind your sternum that defies logical articulation. Conversely, high coherence represents your newly restructured field, the upgraded energetic broadcast. That is the exact vibrational space you are stepping into at this very second. Therefore, that dense emotion you endured and the act of discovering this presentation are intimately connected events. You are actively emitting the exact frequency of an individual teetering on the edge of a massive, genuine breakthrough. The encompassing quantum field, which flawlessly reacts to electromagnetic outputs in the exact same manner a tuning fork reverberates to its corresponding pitch, literally constructed this present moment around your energetic transmission. You did not hunt this content down. Your aura summoned it. Now, let me illustrate exactly what this revelation means for your reality, beginning this very night. But before we dive into the next layer, if this concept is deeply resonating within your own energetic blueprint, there is a vital resource I must share with you. Have you exhausted years of your life desperately attempting to feel lit up and alive again? You have likely tried relentless visualizations, forced positive affirmations, and intense vibrational exercises, yet that radiant light consistently slips through your fingers. The fundamental flaw in every single one of these mainstream techniques is that they demand you to force the issue to push harder, to strive for more, to pile on yet another exhausting daily practice. They are entirely ineffective because your core problem is not a lack of internal light. The actual issue is that half a dozen highly specific energetic blockages are currently suffocating it. We refer to these as the frequencies of forgetting. I have created a specialized resource called the Remembering Field, a quantum guide to returning to the light you forgot you were carrying, which meticulously navigates you through all 5 necessary stages of permanently stripping these dense patterns off your spirit. While conventional methods attempt to force artificial light into your system, this specific protocol systematically lifts the heavy debris that has been suffocating the brilliant illumination you already inherently possess. Be warned, the longer you allow these blockages to linger, the more calcified and difficult they become to clear. I highly urge you to access it tonight. You will find the direct portal linked in the pinned comment below this video. With that established, let us seamlessly return to the primary thread of our exploration. Within the fascinating realm of quantum physics, there exists a foundational principle known as superposition. It is highly likely you have encountered this terminology before. It describes the phenomenon where a quantum particle, such as an electron, concurrently occupies every conceivable state of existence at the exact same time, right up until the precise instant of observation. The very second a conscious observation or interaction occurs, the particle is compelled to collapse and solidify into one definitive, singular state. Prior to that crucial moment of observation, an infinite spectrum of possibilities coexists seamlessly, all at once. Yet, after the interaction takes place, one singular, defined reality crystallizes from that boundless ocean of potential. The vast majority of individuals who learn about this principle find it intellectually stimulating, yet ultimately view it as a purely abstract concept, an isolated anomaly strictly confined to the microscopic, subatomic world. They assume these principles are far too microscopic to influence the grand, macro-scale theater of human existence. Yet, this assumption completely overlooks a magnificent biological truth. Your physical vessel is entirely constructed from quantum components. Consider every single atom firing within your complex nervous system, every erratic electron dancing within the electromagnetic aura projected by your beating heart, and every individual photon constantly radiated by your cellular structure. Indeed, your biological cells literally emit physical illumination. These are known as biophotons, quantifiable, coherent bursts of light that operate strictly within this quantum architecture. You are not some isolated entity standing outside the laws of quantum mechanics. You are, In every measurable sense, a living quantum ecosystem. You are simply a vastly scaled up, warm-blooded, consciously breathing, beautifully complex quantum machine. Understanding this biological reality reveals something truly spectacular about this very second you are experiencing. At this exact juncture, your entire life is actively resting in a state of superposition. A multitude of branching timelines and a vast array of future trajectories are currently existing all at once within the boundless quantum field of pure potential. There is a timeline where this evening fades away as just another ordinary, forgettable night. There is another trajectory where a profound, tectonic shift actually takes root. And there is an entirely different reality where you reflect on this precise evening a couple of years down the line and confidently declare that this was the exact catalyst that transformed everything. Every single one of those distinct destinies is entirely real, and all of them are actively hovering in your present orbit. However, the specific timeline that ultimately solidifies the singular reality that collapses from that hazy superposition into your tangible, breathing, waking life is absolutely dictated by your current electromagnetic transmission. It is selected by the exact vibrational frequency your cardiac field is outputting at this moment, and by the level of harmonic coherence vibrating within your personal aura right now. This is precisely why I stated earlier that your presence here is no accident. You simply could not occupy this specific juncture, experiencing these exact visceral emotions, unless your energetic signature had already initiated its pivot toward the timeline where a genuine breakthrough manifests tonight. You are not waiting for the wave to collapse. You are currently inside the collapse. The act of quantum observation is already underway, and the specific energetic resonance you choose to carry into the remainder of our hour together will actively mold which iteration of your future crystallizes into matter. Therefore, it is time we make this process fiercely conscious. It is imperative that you make your energetic broadcast fully intentional, because a deliberate energetic transmission is not merely a little bit stronger than a passive one. It exists on an entirely different spectrum of power. Imagine the contrast between the flickering flame of a tiny candle and the concentrated, cutting beam of an industrial laser. They are both fundamentally composed of light, yet they possess drastically different levels of coherence and exponentially different capacities for impact. If this knowledge is deeply anchoring into your spirit, and you can physically sense your biofield expanding in response to our journey together, please pause to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, ensuring we can continue this profound exploration. Now, let us dive even further. To illustrate this shift, let me share the journey of a woman named Mara. For the entirety of her adult existence, Mara was locked in a perpetual state of waiting for the mythical perfect timing. She wasn't lazy or passive by any means. She hustled relentlessly. She always showed up, and she checked off every single box society demanded of her. Yet, an invisible shadow hung over all her achievements, a subtle, unnameable tension. She lived with a perpetual sensation of holding her breath, constantly feeling as though she was merely rehearsing for a magnificent life that stubbornly refused to begin. She occupied a respectable career that slowly drained her spirit. She maintained interpersonal connections that were comfortably adequate, yet completely lacked any radiant spark. Furthermore, she possessed a massive portfolio of creative passion projects that she kept entirely hidden from the world, perpetually convincing herself they needed more polish. She believed she had to wait until her skills were flawless, until the cosmic timing was impeccably aligned. Yet, every single dawn she greeted, she concluded that today was simply not the day. The critical piece of the puzzle that Mara completely lacked the profound truth that no mentor had ever revealed to her was that the very act of waiting is, in itself, an incredibly loud, energetic broadcast. That chronic state of holding her breath was sending out a massive signal. The energetic aura she unconsciously cultivated day after day, forged by years of endless preparation without ever crossing the finish line, was beaming a highly distinct, unmistakable frequency directly into the quantum fabric. Not yet, and because the universe's quantum architecture holds no moral bias, and never pauses to judge our desires. It merely mirrors whatever resonance it is fed. Consequently, it meticulously constructed her physical reality around that exact command, endlessly echoing back, "Not yet, not yet, not yet." When the monumental turning point finally arrived for Mara, it was remarkably devoid of theatrical drama. She did not abruptly resign from her corporate position. She did not relocate across the country, nor did she post a sweeping manifesto online. Instead, she was simply idling in her vehicle within a mundane parking lot as the late afternoon sun began to dip. Out of nowhere, she was struck by a lightning bolt of sheer, unadulterated clarity, the rare kind of unannounced epiphany that permanently alters your trajectory. She profoundly recognized that she had been navigating her entire existence as if it were a mere practice run. She was perpetually radiating the vibration of a rehearsal. In that cramped car, she grasped a truth that penetrated far deeper than intellectual understanding. She felt it in the marrow of her bones. There was never going to be a grand opening night following this endless practice. This very moment was the live show. It had always been the main event. Instantly, a massive internal dam shattered within her chest cavity. Reflecting on it later, she articulated the sensation as a hidden, suffocating knot violently unraveling. The dense, highly compressed frequency of perpetual delay she had been clutching for decades was instantaneously released, allowed to finally expand and breathe. As she sat frozen in that parked car, she focused solely on her respiration. With every single inhale and exhale, she could tangibly feel her biological energy field, even if she lacked the spiritual vocabulary to label it as such, back then behaving in an entirely novel manner. It was rapidly dilating, generating a profound internal warmth, and actively initiating a brand new vibrational broadcast. She subsequently drove straight to her house and confidently dispatched the opening chapter of her manuscript to a trio of trusted confidants. That seemingly small action occurred over 6 years ago. Today, her creations are widely accessible, her message resonates with thousands, and her voice holds undeniable weight. This triumph did not manifest because some magical entity transformed her into a completely different human being during that drive. It materialized because she definitively ceased suppressing the brilliant individual she had always been. The actual collapse of the new timeline did not trigger when she clicked the send button on her email. The true quantum leap occurred right there in the driver's seat, during that raw moment of absolute harmonic coherence when her energetic aura fundamentally restructured itself. That pivotal email was merely the very first physical manifestation that her newly upgraded broadcast magnetically pulled into her reality. I am sharing this with you because your equivalent breakthrough is unfolding at this exact second. As we seamlessly transition into the next phase of our journey together, I am going to unveil the precise, invisible mechanics currently operating within your own energy field. Grasping the precise underlying mechanics of this phenomenon is precisely what elevates your energetic transition from a random accident into a deliberate, conscious evolution. Certainly, unintentional reality shifts occur every single day. Ordinary people routinely stumble blindly into entirely new timelines without ever realizing how they got there. However, a meticulously conscious pivot, a deliberate transition that you fully comprehend and actively command operates on an entirely different stratosphere of power. We are no longer talking about a fragile candle flame waving aimlessly in the wind. We are dealing with a highly calibrated laser locking dead onto its designated target. So, let us break down exactly what your bio-aura is physically doing. Whenever you linger on the precipice of a monumental timeline alteration, the dense electromagnetic bubble projected by your cardiac system engages in relentless, rapid-fire dialogue with your central nervous system. Let me reiterate, this is not a poetic metaphor. Biologically speaking, the human heart actually transmits a significantly higher volume of neural commands upward to the brain than the brain sends downward to the heart. Your heart literally possesses its very own autonomous neural network, composed of roughly 40,000 highly specialized sensory neurites, a complex web that modern neurocardiology researchers literally refer to as the heart brain. This intricate cardiac network independently processes vast amounts of data, executes critical decisions, and constantly broadcasts its current vibrational status out to the entirety of your cellular structure and directly into the space around you. When this cardiac field enters a state scientifically classified as coherence, meaning its electromagnetic waveform flows in a deeply smooth, mathematically rhythmic, and highly ordered pattern, an incredible biological cascade occurs. Your brainwave patterns instantly synchronize. Your immune system operations optimize to their absolute peak. Your conscious perception dramatically widens, and your outward energetic transmission becomes what I can only define as profoundly legible. The surrounding quantum architecture can finally read a clean, unified signal. It can seamlessly interpret it and flawlessly organize corresponding vibrational matches around you. Conversely, when your heart's field drops into a state of incoherence, when that wave pattern fractures into a chaotic, erratic, and disorganized mess, your energetic broadcast does not stop. It continues projecting, but it behaves exactly like a broken radio receiver desperately attempting to blast 17 different overlapping stations at the exact same time. The transmission is absolutely there, but it is pure static. Nothing in the quantum fabric can lock onto it, and nothing can reply with any clarity. Consequently, the physical reality that continually builds itself around your transmission has no choice but to mirror back a highly chaotic, confusing, and heavily fragmented existence. Tragically, the vast majority of the population navigates the entirety of their earthly experience, radiating a perpetual state of partial incoherence. This is not because they are inherently broken or irreparably damaged, but simply because they are operating unconsciously. No one ever handed them the user manual explaining that their own heart was the most potent broadcasting instrument in the universe, let alone instructed them on how to accurately calibrate its dials. But the exact nanosecond you become vividly aware of your transmission, you alter it. You do not achieve this by frantically trying to force a different emotion, nor by aggressively plastering toxic positivity over your genuine feelings. You achieve it through the elegantly radical action of steering your pure focus directly onto your own auric field and intentionally electing the exact frequency you wish to emit. Here is the breathtaking sequence of events that unfolds at the quantum level when you execute this choice. We must look at the principle of quantum entanglement. This is a thoroughly documented physical phenomenon wherein two individual particles, the moment they have briefly interacted, remain permanently bonded to one another regardless of the vast physical space separating them. Whatever happens to one particle instantaneously and identically alters its twin, even if they are positioned on completely opposite ends of the known cosmos. Albert Einstein notoriously dismissed this as spooky action at a distance because it defied his classical logic. Yet it is undeniably real. It has been empirically measured, tested, and repeatedly validated in high-tech laboratories with mind-bending precision for several decades. Now, let us apply this staggering scientific reality directly to the trajectory of your life tonight. From the day you were born, you have been continuously interacting with countless individuals, geographical locations, abstract possibilities, and alternative timelines. Every single fleeting interaction forged a microscopic thread of quantum entanglement. Right now, your biofield is intimately tethered to an unimaginably colossal, invisible web of quantum relationships, the vast majority of which your conscious mind has absolutely no memory of mapping out. When your internal field transitions into high coherence, those deeply entangled connections physically feel the ripple. I do not mean they sense it in some vague, metaphorical way. They register it as a literal electromagnetic pulse. The sudden stabilization in your broadcast rapidly surges across your entire entangled network and immediately begins extracting responses. This is exactly why individuals you have not spoken to in over a decade will suddenly reach out, claiming you just crossed their mind. This is why long-dormant career opportunities spontaneously ignite back to life. This is why heavy doors that appeared permanently welded shut suddenly swing open on their own. This is not some whimsical fairy tale magic. This is pure, unadulterated quantum resonance. It is your newly synchronized field, beaming an unmistakably clear directive, magnetically pulling immediate reactions from every single entity it has ever entangled with. This explains why massive timeline leaps often feel incredibly sudden and overwhelmingly fast, why people constantly claim their whole world transformed overnight. It is not that everything arbitrarily decided to change at the exact same moment. Rather, one singular, powerfully coherent internal shift rippled outwards through a massive quantum network, and the echoes of that transmission started crashing back onto your shores from every conceivable direction simultaneously. Your personal web of entanglement is infinite. Your field has been continuously dialoguing with the quantum universe since your first breath. Thus, the moment your output becomes pristine and coherent, the inbound response is never small. It is fiercely proportional to the immense historical scope of your entire entangled existence. Let the gravity of that truth sink deeply into your bones. Right here, in this present moment, I want us to engage in an active process together. Note that I said with you, not at you. This is a tangible, practical exercise. It is hyper-specific to the exact threshold you are currently standing on, tailored exclusively for the profound energetic transition you are navigating right now. Please understand, this is not just another generic, run-of-the-mill mindfulness meditation. It is a highly precise, bioenergetic coherence activation, methodically designed for the specific electromagnetic condition of an individual who is teetering on the edge of a massive timeline jump and is fully prepared to make that leap deliberately conscious. First, I need you to find a physical posture where your spinal column can remain reasonably upright, not painfully rigid or stiff, just comfortably alert and awake. If you prefer to be lying down, that is perfectly acceptable, but I ask that you inject a touch more intentional alertness into your physical vessel, bringing a deeper sense of grounding presence to your limbs. Take a second to truly feel the gravitational weight of yourself. Notice the actual, undeniable physical mass anchoring you, the density of your bones, the heavy weave of your muscles, your exact volume occupying space in this room. This step is absolutely crucial because your surrounding electromagnetic bubble is exclusively generated by and filtered through your biological form. Anchoring your awareness securely into your physical body is not somehow detached from auric energy work. Grounding is the very foundation of auric energy work. Now, with that heavy presence established, I want you to slowly and deliberately draw your entire focused attention directly into the center of your chest, straight to the physical location of your heart. Do not focus merely on the biological organ itself, although that magnificent muscle is undoubtedly present and executing miraculous functions as we speak. Instead, direct your profound awareness to the exact center of your chest, that hollow space resting just behind your breastbone. As you consciously draw your focus into that cavity, I ask you to merely observe something. Do not attempt to force or manufacture a sensation. Simply notice that a distinct warmth already exists within that space. It might present itself as incredibly subtle, perhaps a delicate thermal heat, a gentle physical pressure, or a unique buzzing vitality that feels entirely separate from the rest of your physical limbs. Let me assure you, this warmth is not a figment of your overactive imagination. That precise temperature shift is the literal, measurable electromagnetic friction of your cardiac field. You are, in real time, experiencing your own energetic aura from the inside out. Now, consciously breathe directly into that pocket of warmth. Take a deeply unhurried, deliberate inhalation through your nostrils. Allow the air to pool at the very base of your lungs and rise upward, feeling the physical architecture of your ribcage widen. As this oxygen flows inward, actively visualize, feel, or set the firm intention that this thermal cluster in your chest is expanding. You are not aggressively pushing it to grow. Rather, you are granting it the ultimate permission to dilate simply by gifting it your absolute focus. Attention, at its core, is pure energy, and Whenever energy is nourished by highly concentrated attention, it invariably multiplies. Gently suspend your breath for a brief second at the peak of your inhalation. Do not clench or strain your throat. Just allow a peaceful suspension. Inside that suspended gap, invite a deep realization into your waking consciousness, the unmistakable sensation that you are hovering on the brink of something massive. Do not tether this feeling to a specific material desire you are desperately trying to manifest, nor a rigid outcome you are stubbornly attached to. Just embrace the raw, visceral feeling of standing on a cosmic threshold. It is the profound recognition that the stagnant reality you have been enduring and the luminous timeline that is rightfully yours are, in this exact breath, occupying the identical space. Both are equally present. Both are entirely real. Now, release that breath with extreme slowness. Empty your lungs completely. As that air escapes, tangibly feel that concentrated warmth in your chest burst and radiate outward. Do not limit its reach to your internal organs. Push it entirely beyond the physical boundary of your skin and flood the atmospheric space enveloping you. This outward radiation is a literal physics event. Your cardiac biofield is genuinely stretching past your epidermis in this very fraction of a second. You are not painting a pretty mental picture or playing with poetic metaphors. You are actively captaining a literal, quantifiable electromagnetic broadcast. I want you to execute this exact cycle twice more on your own. Inhale deeply. Multiply the warmth. Anchor into the feeling of the threshold. Exhale completely. Radiate the frequency outward. Once you have completed those 2 additional cycles, allow your respiratory rhythm to fall back into its natural, unforced cadence. But keep your mind anchored to that internal heat for another moment. Pay close attention to whether the oxygen and atmosphere in your immediate room feel texturally different. Check if your chest cavity feels significantly less restricted. Observe if there is a newly minted sense of readiness coursing through your veins, a dynamic, activated readiness that feels drastically different from the suffocating, anxious waiting we discussed earlier. What you are tasting right now is pure coherence. This is what it physically feels like when your energetic aura is flawlessly organized and transmitting a pristine, static-free signal. This is the exact biological sensation of genuinely standing on the precipice of a brand new timeline, where your internal output perfectly harmonizes with the vibrational signature of that uncharted territory. Understand this. This is your factory, default setting. This is your natural baseline. Not some elite, mystical tier you must painfully earn. It simply becomes your everyday reality the moment you stop actively dimming your own light. I want to briefly hit pause right here and pose a question to you, because the digital community watching this is intrinsically woven into this shared quantum field as well. Have you ever consciously felt your personal aura suddenly shift the dynamics of a physical room? Have you ever experienced a distinct moment where strangers inexplicably reacted to your presence differently simply because you walked through the door and altered the environmental frequency? If you have ever felt your internal luminescence spontaneously activate like that, I urge you to document that experience in the comments section below. I personally read through them, and your unique testimony might be the exact catalyst another viewer desperately needs to validate and recognize their own energetic potential. Now, we must confront the concept of dimming. It is absolutely impossible for you to grasp the sheer magnitude of the power available to you this evening without first dissecting exactly what forces have been violently compressing your aura, and more importantly, why that suffocating compression is finally terminating. A highly specific, predictable geometric pattern begins to manifest within the electromagnetic output of any individual who has been surviving drastically below their true vibrational potential for a prolonged time frame. Clinical researchers who specialize in monitoring heart rate variability, HRV, which serves as one of the most reliable, empirically measurable markers of cardiac field coherence, have meticulously documented exactly how the heart's wave pattern degrades. They have mapped what happens to this signal when a human is subjected to relentless, chronic stress, habitual self-censorship, and a sustained, tragic disconnection from their authentic life purpose. The energetic wave does not simply vanish or fatally collapse. Rather, it severely compresses. The peaks and valleys shrink in their overall amplitude. The rhythm devolves into a jittery, erratic stutter, and the geometric pattern loses all semblance of harmonic coherence. Naturally, a heavily restricted, deeply erratic waveform is only capable of broadcasting a restricted, erratic signal out into the universe. And here is the brutal reality of what that stifled transmission magnetically attracts. Even more suffocating compression. It pulls in endless physical circumstances that constantly validate your chosen frequency of insignificance. It summons a mountain of frustrating evidence falsely proving that the world simply does not care about you. It continuously manifests those agonizing experiences of almost, but not exactly, of incredibly close, but still lacking, of desperately reaching out and perpetually grasping at thin air. You are not enduring these near misses because you are cursed or fundamentally unworthy. The universe is not sitting on a throne maliciously punishing you. This is happening purely because your auric field is constantly beaming a specific frequency, and physical reality is dutifully assembling itself to match that exact blueprint. The quantum fabric acts with absolute unwavering loyalty. It holds no moral judgment, plays no favorites, and harbors absolutely zero hidden agendas. Its only law is the law of matched resonance. Let me make this abundantly clear. An individual walking around with a compacted energy field is not inherently doomed to a tiny, insignificant life. They are simply an extraordinarily powerful being temporarily operating with a severely throttled broadcast. Recognizing the massive distinction between those two identities changes absolutely everything. So, what exactly chokes and compresses this field in the first place? I need to be painstakingly specific here, because identifying the culprit is vital. Chronic self-monitoring is the ultimate aura compressor. The toxic routine of constantly policing your own behavior through the fabricated, judgmental eyes of society, perpetually agonizing over questions like, am I being too loud? Am I fundamentally inadequate? Did they interpret my words the wrong way? Is a devastating mechanism. This neurotic habit aggressively hijacks colossal reserves of your electromagnetic power, rerouting it away from an expansive outward broadcast and weaponizing it into a closed system of internal policing. An individual trapped in a state of chronic self-monitoring is quite literally forcing their field to run on an exhausting, inescapable loop. Instead of projecting expansively outward into the universe as it was biologically designed to do, your vital life force is cannibalized. It relentlessly loops back inward to fuel this exhausting, neurotic self-surveillance machinery, resulting in a net external transmission that is merely a microscopic fraction of its true potential volume. Furthermore, unresolved sorrow aggressively constricts your energetic signature. This happens not because mourning is inherently negative or something you should rush to get over, but rather because unacknowledged grief, deep pain that has never been deeply witnessed, never permitted to physically wash through your central nervous system, and never granted the sacred, uninterrupted space required to run its full natural course mutates into a localized standing wave within your biomagnetic framework. It essentially becomes a frozen, trapped vibration, and fundamentally, a static, unmoving frequency is a heavily compressed one. Prolonged periods of living inauthentically will also severely suffocate your field, forcing yourself to inhabit a daily reality that fundamentally clashes with your genuine internal resonance, continually playing a fabricated character that does not truly belong to you, and projecting a synthetic persona that your private soul barely recognizes. All of this triggers a psychological and biological condition I can best define as extreme electromagnetic dissonance. Your internal core is desperately trying to beam out its authentic truth, while your external behavioral patterns are simultaneously transmitting a wildly contradictory signal. The violent collision between these two opposing transmissions brutally crushes the amplitude and reach of both. Yet, perhaps the most widespread, the most insidious, and the most utterly invisible culprit of all is the compounding burden of thousands upon thousands of microscopic instances of self-diminishment. Every single occasion you consciously shrank your own presence just to ensure the comfort of the people around you. Every instance you choked down a profound truth simply because you feared the audience wasn't prepared to hear it. Every time you postponed your own magnificent evolution because you were desperately waiting for an external green light, a permission slip that was never, ever going to be issued from outside of yourself. Each one of these seemingly insignificant concessions was, in reality, a micro-compression. And when multiplied by the thousands over a lifetime, these tiny energetic compromises forge an aura that is tragically outputting at a mere whisper of its spectacular natural baseline. I am not laying out these harsh truths to plunge you into a spiral of guilt over your past decisions. I am illuminating this intricate mechanics because it is absolutely critical that you comprehend exactly what massive, historical burdens are actively fracturing and releasing from your system this very evening. That intense internal pressure you are currently navigating, that humming sense of impending readiness, that visceral realization that the tectonic plates of your life are shifting, that is not merely a fleeting emotional mood. That is the literal, physical sensation of your biological energy field violently decompressing. Those frozen, stagnant waves are finally thawing and regaining their momentum. Your suppressed electromagnetic amplitude is rapidly scaling back up to its magnificent, factory default height, and you must deeply understand that when a severely restricted field finally bursts open, the resulting upgrade in your outward broadcast is not linear or subtle. It is not comparable to gently raising the volume of a quiet conversation. It is the astronomical leap from a muted whisper in an empty room to a deafening broadcast that shakes the very walls. The surrounding quantum matrix instantly detects this massive upgrade. The vast web of your entangled connections rapidly calibrates to the new data. Suddenly, the pristine timeline that perfectly mirrors your fully unbridled, natural vibration rather than your suffocated, compressed echo is suddenly placed right at your fingertips. This precise quantum mechanism is why individuals who undergo genuine, permanent life transformations constantly report feeling as though they have been dropped onto an entirely different planet. Geographically, they haven't moved an inch. Yet, their energetic signature has metamorphosed so radically that the physical reality continuously weaving itself around them is fundamentally, undeniably altered. They reside in the exact same physical vessel, possessing the exact same historical past, yet they are beaming an entirely unrecognizable frequency, thereby commanding a profoundly different response from the universe. You, my friend, are standing dead center in the middle of that exact decompression phase right now. To anchor this concept, let me introduce you to a man named Daniel. Daniel had invested 11 long years navigating a highly demanding professional career that he was remarkably talented at, yet which was fundamentally, soul-crushingly wrong for his spirit. He possessed all the requisite skills. He boasted a flawless track record. He had secured the prestigious title, the lucrative compensation, and the deep admiration of peers whose respect he had sacrificed so much blood and sweat to attain. Yet, every single Sunday evening as the sun dipped low, as reliably as clockwork, a dense, suffocating concrete block would settle deep into his chest cavity, a heavy sensation he had conveniently taught himself to mislabel as mere exhaustion. But it was never physical fatigue. It was the crushing, energetic toll of sustaining a daily existence tuned to the completely wrong frequency. He wasn't navigating any theatrical, explosive tragedy. Ironically, that lack of acute suffering was the very trap that made escaping so incredibly difficult. If he had been utterly devastated or continuously miserable, the choice to walk away would have been painfully obvious. But he wasn't miserable. He was simply fine. He was gracefully managing. He was doing okay. And as Daniel would eventually discover, okay is unequivocally the most lethal and dangerous vibrational state of all. It lacks the sharp, biting agony required to violently eject you from your complacency. Yet it contains absolutely zero of the radiant vitality required to actually experience true, unbridled living. Throughout those 11 years, Daniel's entire electromagnetic blueprint had obediently structured itself around that dull, gray frequency of managing, of surviving, of just being fine. And true to its nature, the quantum fabric faithfully built a physical world to mirror that exact bland transmission, serving him endless platters of more managing, more surviving, and more mediocrity. The monumental paradigm shift in Daniel's trajectory did not arrive courtesy of some explosive external catastrophe. It was born from a fleeting, seemingly insignificant dialogue. It occurred during a casual conversation with a complete stranger he had just met at an obligatory networking event he had almost skipped entirely. This stranger casually presented him with a query that absolutely no one in his entire life had ever dared to ask him. It wasn't a complex philosophical riddle. It was devastatingly direct and remarkably simple. What exact path would you be forging with your life right now if you weren't absolutely terrified of being completely wrong about who you actually are? Reflecting on that exact millisecond later, Daniel described the impact of those words as feeling identical to a massive, heavy boulder plunging into the center of a perfectly still, glassy lake. The resulting energetic shockwaves, the pure, electromagnetic ripples violently surging through his nervous system, were instantaneous and viscerally physical. His baseline heart rhythm spontaneously altered, his respiratory pattern shifted gears. Even the ambient texture of the oxygen hovering in the space around him seemed to instantaneously crackle and change. He didn't possess a coherent, verbal response to that question. Certainly not in that freezing, vulnerable second. However, that single, piercing inquiry had successfully executed something within his energetic biofield that thousands of hours of forced self-improvement and positive thinking had completely failed to achieve. It acted as an illuminating mirror, instantly revealing the grotesque, suffocating shape of his own internal compression. In one blinding flash of absolute clarity, he saw the whole tragic architecture of his cage. He recognized the 11 suffocating years of merely being okay. He identified the true source of that paralyzing Sunday night dread, and he clearly saw his formidable talents being relentlessly fired at a target he never actually wanted to hit in the first place. The profoundly transformative act of finally seeing the reality of his own suppression was the actual, literal moment of his decompression. The quantum leap did not happen during the massive life decisions that inevitably followed, nor was it located in the sweeping lifestyle changes he executed over the subsequent 12 months. The sheer act of witnessing that truth was the ultimate catalyst. That exact millisecond of radical honesty was the precise juncture where his energetic aura harmonized into absolute coherence, aligning firmly with his authentic, undeniable essence instead of remaining fractured by the exhausting, synthetic performance he had forced himself to play. I bring up Daniel's specific experience tonight because of the profound physical manifestations that instantaneously materialized following that brief dialogue. Inside of a mere 14 days, 3 entirely novel elements anchored themselves into his reality elements that were utterly absent prior to that internal shift. First, a serendipitous connection emerged that aggressively pivoted his career trajectory into an entirely new, fulfilling realm. Second, a deeply personal creative endeavor that had laid dormant and gathering dust for years spontaneously surged back to life with fiery momentum. Finally, a stagnant interpersonal relationship that had been trapped in an agonizingly repetitive conversational loop for months abruptly broke its cycle and evolved forward. Understand this crucial point. Daniel did absolutely nothing drastically different in his daily routine during those 2 weeks. His energetic field, however, did all the heavy lifting. His aura violently decompressed, fundamentally restructured its internal geometry, and initiated a brand new vibrational broadcast. This pristine frequency magnetized immediate responses from his vast quantum entanglement web responses that his previously suffocated field was entirely incapable of pulling in. His timeline underwent a massive leap, not as a result of grueling physical labor, but as a direct, effortless consequence of his upgraded energetic transmission. Now, I turn the spotlight directly to you. Have you ever encountered a distinct flash in time, perhaps just recently, or perhaps decades in the past, where you palpably sensed your own biofield instantaneously heat up and dramatically expand? A raw moment where an invisible, heavy valve in your chest cavity burst wide open, and the individuals occupying the exact same physical space as you tangibly absorbed that shift? I want you to drop down into the comments section right now and articulate that exact memory. Those undeniable flashes of recognized luminescence are never random flukes. They are literal, visceral glimpses of your aura actively demonstrating its true, unbridled baseline frequency. Furthermore, documenting those triumphs here actively fortifies the collective coherence of the massive digital energetic field we are continuously constructing together. With that established, we must plunge even deeper into the intricate biological and quantum mechanics governing exactly what is at your fingertips this evening. It is imperative that you grasp a profound secret regarding timeline jumping that the vast majority of humanity remains completely blind to. Fully internalizing this specific revelation will permanently alter the way you navigate the upcoming 24 hours of your existence. In the advanced, theoretical realms of quantum physics, there exists a foundational framework known as the zero-point field. This is the ultimate energetic bedrock of the cosmos. It is the invisible, pulsing substrate that undeniably exists even in the absolute total vacuum of physical matter. This boundless field saturates every single square inch of space, serving as the primordial womb from which every subatomic particle and every conceivable form of energy violently springs into existence. It is a massive misconception to view this as a dark, empty void. It is not an empty vacuum. It is an infinitely full space. In fact, physicists recognize it as the most heavily information-dense medium in the entire known universe. According to rigorous theoretical calculations, a single cubic centimeter of this invisible field harbors a exponentially higher concentration of raw, unadulterated energy than all the solid matter scattered across the entire observable cosmos combined. It is the infinite, fertile canvas from which physical reality continuously paints itself into existence, fraction by fraction of a second. Crucially, your personal electromagnetic aura is locked in a relentless, unbroken dialogue with this zero-point field. This interaction does not just happen occasionally. It does not only switch on when you decide to sit down and meditate. It is continuous, relentless, and eternal. Every solitary time your physical heart muscle contracts and beats, it fires a literal electromagnetic shockwave straight into the zero-point architecture. And every single one of those rhythmic pulses is heavily encrypted with complex data detailing your exact vibrational state in that microsecond. Consequently, the zero-point field, the exact universal medium where abstract quantum potential forcefully collapses into hard, tangible reality, flawlessly responds to that encrypted energetic data. This invisible transaction is the literal, scientific engine driving what spiritual circles vaguely refer to as synchronicity. It is the exact architectural blueprint behind those miraculous instances of being in the perfect place, at the perfect time, or witnessing impossible puzzle pieces magically locking together with zero friction. When your internal biofield achieves high coherence, when your heart is aggressively pumping a crystal clear, impeccably organized, high-amplitude signal directly into the zero-point fabric, the mathematical probability distribution of quantum events in your immediate geographic vicinity fundamentally alters. This phenomenon does not break the laws of physics. It is the very definition of physics operating at its highest level. A synchronized, highly coherent energetic aura exerts a localized, magnetic organizing force upon the chaotic probability distributions floating around you. Physical events and opportunities that perfectly mirror your elevated frequency instantly become mathematically more likely to occur. Conversely, circumstances that deeply clash with your signal plummet in their likelihood of manifesting. The atomic structure of reality itself begins to preferentially weave its threads in the precise direction of your active broadcast. I must reiterate, this is not New Age mysticism or wishful thinking. This is the literal, documented behavior described in advanced quantum field theory. The foundational equations of quantum mechanics rely heavily on probability distributions, intricate mathematical wave functions designed to calculate the exact likelihood of vastly different physical outcomes. These mathematical distributions are absolutely not static or rigid. They are highly malleable, constantly bending and shifting in direct response to the specific electromagnetic environment they inhabit. Your personal cardiac field is an immensely powerful contributor to that localized electromagnetic environment. Therefore, a harmonious, coherent heart projection manipulates these probabilities, exponentially stacking the deck to favor circumstances that match its own harmonic signature. Let us translate this dense science into unmistakable plain language. When your internal energy is deeply organized and coherent, you are in a literal, mathematical, and physical sense infinitely more likely to stumble into the exact right place at the absolute perfect moment. You are statistically far more prone to colliding with the one specific human being who holds the key to changing everything. You naturally intercept the exact pieces of hidden information required to kick open the next heavy door on your path. You effortlessly stumble upon precisely what you require, exactly when you require it. On the flip side of that coin, whenever your aura is fractured, compressed, and projecting chaotic static, you become mathematically and physically blocked from encountering those serendipitous windfalls. This drought does not occur because a judgmental universe is stubbornly punishing you or intentionally withholding its blessings. It happens purely because your erratic broadcast is failing to generate the necessary electromagnetic climate to render those miracles probable. This is the unvarnished, empirical mechanics of true timeline jumping. It is never a fantastical, magical leap from one pre-written destiny to another. It is simply a deliberate recalibration of your biological electromagnetic output, which seamlessly rewrites the probability distribution of the quantum events swirling in your orbit. That mathematical shift ultimately dictates what physical matter reality chooses to construct around you, which fundamentally redefines every single aspect of what you perceive as your daily existence. You are not, and have never been, a helpless, passive spectator trapped on a predetermined path. You are the ultimate, undisputed electromagnetic architect of your own destiny. And tonight, right in this very moment, your powerful field is aggressively reorganizing itself back toward pure, unstoppable coherence. This profound transformation is already actively underway. What we are engaging in at this exact moment, this intimate dialogue, this energetic transmission, this dedicated hour of laser-focused attention on your personal biofield is actively participating in and rapidly accelerating a metamorphosis that has already been triggered. I want us to undertake a highly specific exercise right now. This sequence ventures far deeper than the initial grounding practice we explored earlier. It requires a more profound immersion into your energetic architecture, meticulously tailored for this exact phase you are navigating. The critical window of decompression and systemic reorganization. This is the precise juncture where your outdated, stagnant broadcast is finally shedding, allowing your upgraded signature to solidify. This protocol consists of 3 distinct phases. Navigate through them at whatever tempo feels most aligned for your nervous system. There is absolutely no need to rush. The quantum fabric does not reward frantic urgency. It answers exclusively to grounded presence. Phase 1 is identified as the release of the held frequency. Gently anchor your conscious awareness back into the core of your chest. However, rather than simply expanding the surface heat this time, I invite you to peer into the layers beneath it. Do not use forceful effort or aggressive psychological excavation. Approach this with a soft, yielding curiosity. For the vast majority of individuals, buried deep within their cardiac field, there is a very specific frequency that has been tightly gripped for an excruciatingly long time. It is a vibrational note that has been forcefully sustained far beyond its natural expiration date. You might register it as a dense physical tightness, an ingrained emotional armor, or a chronic state of being partially closed that you have grown so numb to, you forgot it was even there. Locate that dense knot. Do not dissect it intellectually. Do not obsess over tracing its origins or deciphering its meaning. Merely isolate the visceral sensation of its presence. Now, direct your breath straight into its center, not with the agenda of fixing it, but simply to validate it. Let your inhalation silently communicate. I see you hidden there. I recognize you have been occupying this space. I understand you have been working tirelessly to shield me from harm. But I am fully prepared now. I am ready to allow you to move on. As you release your next deep exhalation, visualize that captive frequency, that tightly compressed, suffocating note finally initiating its release. It is not violently detonating or drastically collapsing. Instead, it is unwinding with the graceful surrender of a fiercely clenched fist slowly relaxing its fingers. It mirrors the profound relief of a breath that has been anxiously held for minutes, finally allowed to escape. Let it flow. Permit it to stretch out. Allow it to transform into something vastly more expansive than the rigid, suffocated geometry it was previously forced to maintain. You do not need to intellectually comprehend what exact trauma or blockage you are expelling. Your energetic intelligence intrinsically knows. Surrender to its wisdom. Phase 2 is titled, The Recognition of Your Natural Frequency. Once you have lingered in that space of gentle release, once you have genuinely granted that stagnant note the grace to depart, I want you to investigate what remains underneath the clearing. Because lying beneath every single layer of energetic compression, beneath every suffocated vibration, and beneath every exhausting habit of self-diminishment, resides your authentic, untainted baseline frequency. This is the exact harmonic signature you effortlessly embodied long before society taught you to shrink yourself. It is the brilliant resonance you hum with when no one is surveilling you, when you are deeply immersed in your absolute passion, and when the illusion of time completely melts away. It is the unadulterated frequency of your truest essence. You are intimately familiar with this vibration. You have undoubtedly tasted it before, perhaps only rarely, perhaps in sudden, unpredictable flashes, or perhaps in instances so fleeting that you tragically dismissed them as random anomalies. Yet, you know it implicitly. It carries an undeniable, unmistakable texture, a profound flavor of absolute ripeness, of surging vitality, of a deep inner knowing that declares, "This is who I fundamentally am." Reach out and feel for that texture right now. Do not greedily attempt to lock it down, hoard it, or aggressively force it into a permanent state. Just acknowledge its presence. Allow yourself the grace of truly recognizing it. That sensation is your organic, factory default broadcast. That is the pristine signal your biofield naturally emits when it is entirely uncompressed, completely unarmored, and unapologetically whole. Understand this vital truth. This frequency is not something you must exhaustingly construct from scratch. It is merely something you must cease burying. The third and final phase is the conscious transmission. Operating directly from that newly recognized space of your authentic baseline, I am asking you to initiate a fiercely deliberate outward broadcast. You do not necessarily need spoken words, though you may utilize them if they help anchor your focus. Rely primarily on the tangible, somatic sensation of your biofield actively radiating outward from your heart center. Reconnect with that profound warmth blooming within your chest cavity. Feel its intense expansion. Tangibly sense it stretching far beyond the physical barrier of your epidermis, spilling out into the surrounding atmosphere, flooding the physical room you are sitting in, and permanently altering the local electromagnetic environment you currently occupy. As your newly liberated field boldly radiates, lock into your conscious awareness the precise feeling of the timeline that perfectly mirrors this pristine frequency. I am not asking you to visualize a highly specific, materialistic daydream or a rigid list of demands. Instead, conjure the sheer frequency of that reality, the visceral, bodily sensation of occupying a life that finally fits perfectly. Feel the texture of a reality that has meticulously assembled itself around your true, uncompressed broadcast, rather than your diminished one. Imagine the sheer relief of waking up tomorrow morning and profoundly recognizing your authentic self, reflected in every aspect of the world around you. Beam that exact sensation outward into the ether. Do not project it as a desperate, pleading wish. Project it as a commanding broadcast. Emit it as an undeniable electromagnetic fact. Because, in this exact fraction of time, with your energy field calibrated to this supreme level of coherence, it is an absolute physical fact. It is a highly potent, tangible signal currently penetrating the zero-point field. It is actively manipulating the mathematical probability distributions within your surrounding environment, right this very second. It is already magnetically pulling aligned responses from your vast web of quantum entanglement. This is no longer blind hope or wishful thinking. This is empirical, applied physics. Remain anchored in this empowered state for as long as your spirit requires. Then, whenever you feel entirely complete, gently guide your respiratory rhythm back to its normal, unforced baseline, and slowly draw your waking awareness back into the physical room surrounding you. However, pay very close attention. The actual room might feel texturally and atmospherically different. The very density of the space may appear to have shifted. Let me assure you, this is not your imagination playing tricks on you. That is the literal, physical aftermath of your biofield actively broadcasting at a vastly superior amplitude, and the local electromagnetic environment immediately morphing to accommodate it. Welcome back to your body, and more importantly, welcome forward to your new timeline. Now, we must urgently discuss exactly what transpires during the critical 2-4-hour window, immediately following a massive coherent shift like this one. This is the precise phase that the overwhelming majority of people drastically misunderstand. And tragically, this exact misunderstanding is what causes them to accidentally recompress their newly liberated field at the exact moment it is at its most vulnerable and open. Whenever your cardiac aura successfully recalibrates into a highly elevated state of coherence, you immediately enter a highly specific, delicate transitional window. This phase can span anywhere from a handful of hours to several consecutive days. And during this precise time frame, your energetic signature becomes remarkably sensitive and profoundly permeable. I need you to understand that this heightened sensitivity is absolutely not a structural weakness or a flaw. On the contrary, it is a definitive hallmark of supreme auric coherence. An impeccably organized electromagnetic field is inherently much more receptive to incoming frequencies in the exact same manner that a masterfully calibrated, high-fidelity radio antenna effortlessly captures subtle signals that a broken, static-filled receiver completely fails to detect. However, this newly acquired permeability carries a distinct warning label. In the immediate 24-hour window trailing a massive energetic breakthrough, your biofield is hyper-responsive to every single external stimulus, and unfortunately, that includes the dense, toxic triggers that are perfectly capable of forcefully recompressing it. The single most prevalent trigger for violent energetic regression in the day following a timeline jump originates from the immediate human beings occupying your physical ecosystem and their subconscious reactions to your drastically upgraded transmission. I need to dissect this dynamic with laser-like precision, as grasping this is paramount to your success. The second your internal vibration leaps, the individuals orbiting your daily life tangibly feel the shockwave. They might not possess the spiritual vocabulary to consciously articulate what just happened, but their biological nervous systems instantaneously register the radical alteration in your electromagnetic output. For those specific individuals whose own personal auras have been heavily structured around an outdated, deeply compressed iteration of you, a version of you that was beaming a heavily muted frequency they found comfortably familiar and highly predictable, your suddenly unleashed broadcast can register as wildly disorienting. It can even feel inherently threatening to their psychic equilibrium. Let me be absolutely clear. This reaction is rarely born from malicious intent or a conscious desire to sabotage your growth. It happens primarily because high-level coherence is deeply contagious, and quite frequently, individuals who are absolutely terrified of evolving their own lives will violently resist the magnetic pull of coherence they sense radiating from another person's aura. This subconscious resistance manifests through a myriad of insidious behavioral masks. You might encounter a sudden wave of passive-aggressive skepticism directed at your newfound passion. You may face playful, sarcastic jabs specifically designed to puncture your soaring momentum. You will likely field seemingly logical, rational questions that secretly harbor a toxic, unspoken subtext. Just who exactly do you think you are becoming? You might even experience an abrupt, demanding spike in people aggressively monopolizing your time, desperately attempting to drag you backward into archaic relationship dynamics, exhausting cyclical debates, and the severely outdated version of yourself that perfectly aligned with their low-frequency comfort zone. I reiterate, the vast majority of this behavior is entirely devoid of conscious malice. It is, from top to bottom, a purely electromagnetic transaction. It is merely the desperate retaliation of lower frequency fields rebelling against the massive, paradigm-shattering disruption your newly upgraded resonance has injected into the local environment. Therefore, here is your non-negotiable protocol for the next day. You are under absolutely zero obligation to defend your evolution. You do not need to articulate it, fiercely justify it, or exhaust yourself attempting to convert skeptics. Your singular, uncompromising mission is to fiercely guard and maintain your internal coherence. Why? Because a stabilized, unyielding, coherent aura is exponentially more dominant than any chaotic, disrupting, incoherent force. It does not win by deploying aggressive force or engaging in exhausting battles. It triumphs through sheer, unadulterated structural integrity. Harmonic coherence sustained over an extended duration always emerges victorious. It conquers not by bulldozing its opponents, but by outlasting them through unwavering persistence. Groundbreaking clinical studies conducted by the HeartMath Institute regarding the phenomenon of biofield entrainment, the precise mechanism through which one energetic projection overrides and dictates the rhythm of another, conclusively demonstrate that the field possessing the higher degree coherence will inevitably magnetically synchronize the weaker, chaotic field. The dynamic rarely flows in reverse. An individual steadfastly beaming from a pinnacle of cardiac coherence intrinsically lifts the vibrational baseline of everyone occupying their immediate radius. They do not get violently dragged down into the mud. However, this miraculous elevation only transpires if the coherent transmitter utterly refuses to abandon their post. The exact millisecond you cave in, actively recompressing your spirit to appease their resistance, the entire entrainment process violently flips, and you become the one being dragged backward. Consequently, throughout the next critical 24 hours trailing our session tonight, the moment you detect that heavy, magnetic undertow attempting to violently drag you back into the familiar abyss of compression, the instant a person, a stressful trigger, or an environmental factor invites you to shrink yourself again, your required response is never to fiercely combat it. Fighting creates friction, and friction is incoherence. Your sole practice is to effortlessly retreat back into your cardiac command center. Locate that profound internal warmth, flood it with intentional breath, and allow your magnificent aura to execute what it is biologically engineered to do when you finally stop sabotaging it. Ruthlessly radiate. You do not need to invent an entirely new personality to lock down this timeline shift. You simply must relentlessly prioritize the pristine architecture of your own coherence over the toxic, suffocating comfort of your historical compression. Before we conclude this segment, there is a heavy burden I must directly address, because I intuitively sense it is a massive weight you have been silently dragging around for years, and tonight is the ultimate expiration date for that luggage. You have undeniably tasted these profound timeline leaps in your past. You have experienced those magical windows where sudden clarity struck like a thunderbolt, your energetic field cracked wide open, and a breathtaking new realm of possibilities felt overwhelmingly real, tangible, and unquestionable. And yet, shortly after, due to insidious, invisible factors you likely could not articulate at the time, the breakthrough simply failed to anchor. The blinding clarity dissolved into fog. Your expansive field tragically collapsed in on itself. That glittering new reality, which felt so tantalizingly close you could taste it, rapidly faded back into the distant horizon. You were brutally abandoned with nothing but the haunting memory of what that liberation felt like, forced to crawl right back to square one. Let us be brutally honest. Surviving the painful whiplash of retreating back to your old cage is infinitely more agonizing than never having tasted freedom at all, because now your soul possesses the undeniable proof of what is actually possible, yet you are suffocating in the knowledge that you aren't living it. If this devastating cycle mirrors your historical experience, I need you to absorb this next statement deep into your bones. That was absolutely never a failure. That heartbreaking regression was not a permanent indictment of your worth, nor was it definitive proof that you are fundamentally incapable of sustaining a massive life transformation. It was merely evidence that you boldly attempted to cross a cosmic threshold completely blind to the underlying architecture required to keep the door propped open. You successfully hijacked a higher frequency without possessing the operational manual detailing what triggered it or how to permanently stabilize it. You enjoyed the intoxicating thrill of the experience, but you were completely stripped of the applied mechanics. And when the foundational mechanics are completely absent, the deeply entrenched grooves etched into your nervous system and your historical electromagnetic blueprint will always forcefully reclaim their territory. Tonight permanently breaks that curse because you are finally being handed the literal mechanics. You are no longer stumbling blindly through mystical experiences. You are mastering the hardcore physics governing your own biological transmission. And grasping that specific architecture is the absolute, definitive line drawn in the sand between a fleeting, momentary high that quickly fades away and a permanent, structural timeline shift that eternally holds its ground. Extensive clinical data derived from the HeartMath Institute's rigorous studies on cardiac coherence training reveals a fascinating psychological and biological phenomenon. When individuals actually master the underlying mechanics of their own internal coherence, when they profoundly grasp exactly what is transpiring within their biomagnetic aura and acquire the precise tools to systematically reconstruct that harmony whenever it inevitably fractures their capacity to sustain, elevated, high-frequency states skyrockets exponentially over the long term. This sustained elevation does not occur because they are aggressively forcing themselves into a state of toxic positivity or faking a good mood. It happens simply because they finally possess a navigational blueprint. They have a concrete map. They intimately recognize the physiological texture of true coherence. They can instantly identify the specific environmental triggers that shatter it. And, most crucially, they hold the exact compass required to navigate straight back to home base. Possessing this map is the ultimate game changer, and as of this evening, you are officially holding that map in your hands. Let me be perfectly transparent. This blueprint is not some magical talisman guaranteeing you will never accidentally slip back into a compressed, low-frequency state. You are human. Regressions are inevitable. However, this map serves as an ironclad guarantee that whenever you do stumble and your field contracts, you will not spiral into a blind panic. You will instantly diagnose exactly what energetic interference occurred, and you will possess the precise coordinates to guide yourself back into alignment. This exact architectural knowledge is what fundamentally separates tonight's breakthrough from every other fleeting moment of spiritual clarity you have ever chased. The true catalyst is not the temporary euphoric high. It is the hardcore grounded comprehension governing that high. Now, I need to usher you even deeper into one final layer of these energetic mechanics, because there is a crucial architectural secret regarding timeline jumping that we have not yet dissected. Frankly, I consider this to be the single most vital piece of wisdom I can implant in your consciousness before our session concludes. When the vast majority of humanity visualizes the concept of jumping timelines or upgrading their reality, they mistakenly picture it strictly as a forward-moving trajectory. They envision a grueling march from their current miserable location toward some distant, utopian destination, abandoning point A to eventually arrive at point B. Their internal metaphor relies entirely on horizontal, linear progression. They view it as a grueling, time-consuming marathon from here to there. However, That linear paradigm is absolutely not how quantum reality actually operates. Fully comprehending the actual, multidimensional geometry of a timeline leap permanently rewrites the rules of the game. Within the established laws of quantum mechanics, every single conceivable outcome and potential reality is actively occurring simultaneously. That magnificent, upgraded timeline you are so desperately yearning to transition into is not hiding somewhere thousands of miles ahead of you on a chronological calendar. It is absolutely not a distant, untouchable future destination that you must exhaustingly travel toward. Instead, it is a living, breathing present moment that exists right here, right now, perfectly resting in a state of quantum superposition directly on top of the exact, mundane reality you are currently enduring. A genuine reality shift does not move forward. It moves perpendicularly. It is not a slow slog down a single unbroken highway, but rather a sudden, lateral sidestep across the boundless quantum fabric, dropping you directly into an entirely different probability distribution. This alternate existence is already 100% tangible, entirely actualized, and simply lying dormant, waiting for the exact electromagnetic password that matches its unique harmonic signature. What this implies is revolutionary. The specific reality where your life is radically transformed is not a hazy mirage you are walking toward. It is a fully constructed room you are stepping directly into at this very second. Strictly by recalibrating your energetic output, you are literally swapping out the frequency that anchors you to your current, frustrating probability matrix for the exact resonance of the universe you actually wish to occupy. Therefore, the vast chasm separating your current, stagnant existence from your ultimate, liberated timeline is completely untethered from the concepts of physical time, geographical miles, or exhausting manual labor. That distance is exclusively measured in pure electromagnetic frequency. It is simply the vibrational gap between your current, default transmission and the specific broadcast required to unlock that new dimension. And because we are dealing with pure physics, that gap does not need to be traversed at a snail's pace. It can be bridged instantaneously. True frequency shifts are never slow, gradual progressions. Think of a metallic tuning fork. It is either actively vibrating in perfect resonance with a specific pitch, or it is entirely silent. There is no ambiguous middle ground. The absolute nanosecond it strikes the correct pitch, it is locked in. You are not getting closer or almost there. You are simply there. This instantaneous quantum leap is the exact reason why massive life transformations frequently feel so bewilderingly abrupt. It brilliantly explains why individuals constantly recount stories of waking up on a random Tuesday to find their entire world completely unrecognizable. The physical objects in their reality didn't randomly decide to morph while they slept. Rather, their internal biofield successfully breached the specific frequency threshold required to collapse their existence into a vastly superior probability distribution. And the moment you trigger that quantum collapse, that new state instantly becomes your concrete reality. It is no longer an abstract goal pasted on a vision board, nor is it a whimsical daydream. It solidifies into your actual, undeniable, breathing reality. I want you to realize that you are actively stepping over that precise threshold at this very moment. I am not speaking in flowery metaphors, nor am I offering you motivational aspirations. In this literal ticking second, your personal aura is projecting a frequency that is exponentially closer to the gates of that new timeline than it was when you first clicked play on this video. The deliberate internal exercises we just executed, the deep harmonic coherence you successfully cultivated, and the dense, historical compression you actively expelled, every single one of these actions forcefully dragged your electromagnetic signal straight into the vibrational territory of the reality you are claiming. That quantum doorway is drastically closer now than it was a mere hour ago. But here is a critical nuance you must deeply internalize. You do not need to consciously detect the exact millisecond you cross the finish line. You do not require fireworks, a booming voice from the sky, or some theatrical sense of arrival. Genuine timeline leaps rarely hire a marching band to announce their presence. More often than not, you will find yourself sitting on your couch 3 months from today, suddenly struck by the profound realization that the tectonic plates of your destiny permanently shifted tonight, and the physical evidence has simply been quietly piling up around you ever since. It will be the serendipitous phone call that seemingly materialized out of thin air. It will be the massive career breakthrough that defied all logical explanation. It will be the stagnant relationship that miraculously broke its toxic cycle. The stubborn creative block that effortlessly dissolved into a state of pure flow, and a deeply anchored sense of internal peace that somehow transitioned into your everyday factory setting, rather than a rare, fleeting luxury. The actual pivot might be profoundly silent, but it is undeniably real, and it is aggressively unfolding right under your feet. Finally, I need to directly address a very specific, fiercely guarded fragment of your psyche that is currently absorbing this information. I am speaking directly to the part of you that is genuinely vibrating with a newfound sensation, yet is simultaneously paralyzed by the terrifying question of whether this is all just a temporary illusion. This is the deeply wounded aspect of your inner child that has stood in this exact, expansive, wide-open state before, intoxicated by the thrilling scent of impending transformation, only to be brutally let down, learning the hard way that hope is a highly dangerous currency. This is the hyper-vigilant protector within you that has mastered the art of shielding you from the devastating whiplash of a failed transition by stubbornly refusing to fully invest in the miracle in the first place. I fully acknowledge and honor that protective mechanism. I am absolutely not commanding it to abandon its post or violently lower its shields. Psychological armor serves a very valid biological purpose. Instead, I wish to offer that guarded part of you a massive upgrade. I am not demanding it stop protecting you. I am handing it a radically superior, scientifically grounded framework for what true, unbreakable protection actually looks like. The psychological defense mechanism of playing it safe, the strategy of never quite allowing yourself to fully believe in the miracle, actually operates by forcefully holding your energetic field in a state of partial compression. It is the insidious act of hedging your bets. You project a hesitant, guarded signal that essentially mutters, "I am somewhat receptive, but with heavy reservations. I am hopeful, yet I am keeping my expectations low. I am stepping forward, but I am stubbornly keeping one foot planted safely in the past." While this calculated armor might successfully insulate you from the acute, crushing disappointment of a fully committed leap that ultimately fails, it simultaneously functions as absolutely guaranteeing that the shift will not hold. Why? Because a fractured, partially suppressed auric field fundamentally lacks the required vibrational amplitude to breach the critical coherence threshold. It simply does not possess the power to collapse a brand new, elevated timeline into physical existence. In a tragic twist of quantum irony, your protective hedge is the exact mechanism that ensures your deepest fears materialize. Authentic, energetic protection has absolutely nothing to do with shrinking your presence or hiding behind a shield to avoid getting bruised. Genuine armor is forged through a master-level comprehension of your own biological field's mechanics, empowering you to stubbornly sustain your internal coherence, no matter what chaotic, disruptive storms rage in the external world around you. True safety is abandoning the desperate need for your timeline leap to manifest in a highly specific, rigidly dictated manner. It is relinquishing the demand that your new reality adhere to a strict chronological schedule, or desperately requiring tangible, external evidence before you permit yourself to believe in its validity. The absolute highest form of protection is placing unwavering, blind trust in your outward broadcast, allowing the quantum fabric to meticulously weave reality around that signal, without you compulsively attempting to micromanage the assembly process. I will not sugarcoat this reality. Surrendering that illusion of control is an exponentially more grueling practice than safely hiding behind a hedge. However, it is the solitary, uncompromising strategy that actually yields tangible results. Therefore, I am extending a profound challenge to you right now. Consider this not as a rigid command, but as a deeply personal, empowering invitation. For the next 24 hours, make the conscious, radical decision to prioritize your energetic field over your ingrained fears. You do not have to commit to this indefinitely, nor do you need to vow to hold it forever. Just try it for one single rotation of the Earth. Every single instance you detect that heavy, magnetic undertow attempting to drag you back into recompression, pulling you toward the illusion of safety and that lukewarm, familiar frequency of almost, but not quite, I want you to fiercely interrupt the pattern. Immediately pivot your awareness directly back into the center of your chest. Locate that internal pocket of heat, flood it with oxygen, and grant your biofield absolute permission to project its organic, unrestricted baseline frequency just for today, just for tonight, and just for tomorrow. Allow your transmission to be deafeningly loud. Ensure your energetic signal is flawlessly pristine. For once in your life, feed the zero-point field a fiercely unambiguous, unapologetic directive, and simply sit back and observe what miraculous architecture it begins to construct in response. Understand this undeniable truth, the physical reality that coalesces in response to a bold, crystal, clear, uncompromised transmission from a highly coherent aura is astronomically different from the meager scraps you attract with a throttled, heavily qualified, one-foot-out-the-door vibration. They belong to entirely different stratospheres of existence. The incoming reality will expand in direct proportion to the maximum amplitude of your authentic, natural frequency, which, I can absolutely guarantee you, is infinitely more colossal and magnificent than you have ever permitted yourself to imagine. You have spent so many exhaustive decades aggressively dampening your own luminescence that you have tragically mistaken that muted, suffocated shadow for your actual brilliance. You have operated at a mere microscopic fraction of your true power for so long that your brain has literally been rewired to believe that tiny fraction constitutes the entirety of your being. But the totality of your power is still right there. Your blinding, full-spectrum radiance has not evaporated. It has never abandoned you. It has simply been patiently burning beneath decades of suffocating, self-imposed debris, faithfully humming at its natural pitch, quietly waiting for the precise moment you finally decided to stop throwing a heavy blanket over it. That exact moment of unveiling is happening right now. I now want to address the massive, interconnected digital community that congregates around this specific channel, and I am speaking directly and intimately to you, the exact individual sitting there right now, actively hovering in this precise threshold state, radiating this beautiful, newly cultivated quality of openness. The profound transformation you are physically experiencing in this exact millisecond is not merely an isolated, personal victory. It is absolutely not exclusively about upgrading your individual daily routine or manifesting your own private, wealthy timeline. Whenever a solitary human field fiercely shifts into peak coherence, the resulting energetic shockwave does not merely stay conveniently contained within that one person's body. It violently ripples outward, fundamentally altering and upgrading the frequency of every single living entity operating within its immediate electromagnetic radius. And thanks to the infinite, invisible web of quantum entanglement, it cascades outward to elevate human beings positioned far beyond that localized geographic zone. Your massive timeline jump tonight does not belong exclusively to you. It is a massive, highly potent donation to the overall coherence of our entire collective human field. The Global Coherence Initiative, pioneered by the brilliant minds at the HeartMath Institute, has spent years empirically mapping the undeniable correlation between individual cardiac coherence and the overarching electromagnetic envelope of the Earth itself, including the planetary Schumann resonances and the vital geomagnetic fields that bathe and permeate all terrestrial life. Their rigorous, peer-reviewed clinical data overwhelmingly suggests that when a critical mass of individuals simultaneously elevates into a state of high-level heart coherence, the positive impact on the Earth's global field is absolutely not some whimsical theoretical metaphor. It is physically, technologically, and empirically measurable. Your localized, individual coherence literally fuels and amplifies the collective harmony of the planet. Your biofield is not some lonely, isolated island. It is a vital, functioning node within a colossal, planetary electromagnetic ecosystem. This means that by bravely choosing to anchor into your own coherence tonight, you are accomplishing far more than just rewriting your personal destiny. You are actively weaving your upgraded, high-fidelity signal into the massive collective broadcast generated by thousands of other awakened souls who are standing on this exact same threshold right alongside you. You are linking arms with every single person who serendipitously found this presentation tonight, whose fields are collectively decompressing, aggressively reorganizing, and fiercely reaching for the frequency of a life that finally aligns with their truth. The compounded, unified coherence of that massive collective field possesses a world-shattering power that exponentially eclipses the strength of any single, isolated aura. You are absolutely not navigating this terrifying leap in the dark alone. You are executing it as an integral, deeply valued pillar of a massive, unified front, and that collective field is undeniably fortified and strengthened purely because of your brave participation within it. Finally, before we begin to transition toward the conclusion of our journey together, I want to equip you with one incredibly practical tool for the pivotal days rapidly approaching. It is a singular, incredibly powerful organizing principle that you can instantly return to whenever panic sets in, whenever your forward momentum appears to inexplicably stall, or whenever those insidious old frequencies desperately attempt a hostile takeover of your nervous system. The foundational principle is simply this: your energetic broadcast always precedes you, wherever you travel, long before your physical body ever crosses the doorway. Your electromagnetic signature has already entered the room. The human heart generates a biomagnetic envelope that literally projects several feet outward in every geographical direction. Because of this undeniable biological reality, your energetic field physically breaches the threshold of a room long before your physical body ever walks through the door. It enters a conversation before your vocal cords even begin to vibrate. It permeates a relationship long before you consciously attempt to deepen it, and the vast quantum field that it continuously interacts with begins meticulously organizing physical reality around your signal before you even realize you are engaging with it. What this profound truth reveals is that the most pivotal variable in any situation is never the perfectly rehearsed words you say, the intellectual decisions you make, or the physical actions you execute. The supreme, overriding factor is the atmospheric condition of your aura the moment before you arrive. It is the invisible broadcast you are hauling with you, the precise frequency you are radiating as you approach. Imagine an individual stepping into a crowded room, aggressively broadcasting from a highly coherent, massive amplitude field radiating unshakable warmth, razor-sharp clarity, and grounded presence. That person permanently alters the molecular tension of the entire space before they even utter a single syllable. The local electromagnetic environment instantly reorganizes itself to accommodate their dominant signal. Probability matrices aggressively shift. The other individuals occupying that room intuitively feel a magnetic pull without consciously understanding why, and their nervous systems eagerly respond to it. Hidden opportunities suddenly unlock. Casual conversations rapidly deepen. Magic simply happens. Now, contrast that with an individual walking into the exact same room, but broadcasting from a heavily compressed, violently incoherent field that reeks of hypervigilance, suffocating smallness, or a deeply fragile, forcefully faked confidence. They alter the room in a drastically different, much darker manner. The occupants instinctively feel that jarring dissonance. Their nervous systems register the subtle threat, and they unconsciously tense up and pull away. It is the exact same physical room, and the exact same physical person, but a completely different energetic broadcast results in an entirely different, lived reality. Your transmission is your vanguard. It always precedes you. Therefore, your non-negotiable daily practice for the days ahead is elegantly simple. Before you step into a meeting, a difficult conversation, or a new environment, hit the pause button. Retreat back into your cardiac command center. Locate that deep internal pocket of warmth. Flood it with oxygen. Let it rapidly expand. And permit your field to radiate outward so that it arrives at the destination before your physical body does. Allow it to carry the unadulterated frequency of your organic coherence, your natural amplitude, and your blinding brightness. Do not treat this as some manipulative, psychological parlor trick designed to extract what you want from the world. Execute this as a radical act of energetic integrity. Treat it as an uncompromising commitment to finally broadcasting what you fundamentally are, rather than the diminished, apologetic character society has conditioned you to perform. Because the truth of what you actually are is absolutely extraordinary. I am not saying this in some vague, motivational, everyone is a special snowflake kind of way. I am stating this as a measurable, empirical, electromagnetic fact. Your heart acts as a biological oscillator, generating a highly specific field that carries your unique frequency. When that frequency is finally stripped of its trauma and allowed to express itself fully, it forms a totally unique harmonic signature within the quantum field that literally nothing else in the cosmos can replicate. No one possesses your exact energetic fingerprint. No one shares your exact web of quantum entanglement history. No one holds your highly specific combination of emotional resonance and coherent signatures. You are a completely singular, unrepeatable electromagnetic event in the grand, sweeping history of the universe. And for decades, you have been actively suffocating that cosmic singularity just to squeeze into tiny, restrictive spaces that were never built to accommodate your full magnitude. Tonight, that tragic habit permanently ends. Not because you have suddenly decided to fake a new persona, but because you have finally remembered your original one. You are physically feeling your biofield actively shed its dense armor, reorganizing itself, and fiercely reaching for the timeline that actually honors your scale. You have done the heavy lifting. You have stoked the internal warmth. You have breathed deeply into the terrifying threshold. And you have granted those long-held, stagnant notes the permission to finally leave your body. You have achieved this because you finally comprehend the literal physics behind it all, not just the fleeting emotional high, but the hardcore mechanics of what your field is doing, why it is so critical, and what it is truly capable of manifesting. Make no mistake, you did not randomly stumble onto this video by accident. Your field actively hunted for it, and your field magnetically drew it to you because it was finally ready. Because you were finally ready. Because somewhere buried deep beneath the suffocating conditioning, the trauma, and the thousands of micro-moments where you voluntarily dimmed your light, a dormant, fiercely awake piece of your soul sent a blazing distress flare into the quantum field that declared, "Tonight is the night. Tonight, I am finally ready to remember." And the infinite quantum fabric, which unconditionally and immediately responds to highly coherent signals, meticulously assembled this exact intersection of time, space, and technology to honor that broadcast. Now, I want to guide you into a territory where the vast majority of spiritual transmissions prematurely stop. This next layer is what transforms everything we have discussed tonight from a beautiful, abstract philosophy into a permanent, indestructible biological reality. I believe you are fully ready to absorb this, and it is the missing link that will make your shift durable. We must intimately discuss exactly what is transpiring inside your physical flesh, specifically within your intricate nervous system, in the days and weeks directly following a genuine reality jump, because the violent shift in your electromagnetic aura and the rewiring of your physical neurology are absolutely not two separate events. They are the exact same phenomenon being observed through two different scientific lenses. Mastering the hard biological side of what is currently happening inside your body will equip you with a grounded stability that pure energy work alone simply cannot provide. Your central nervous system fundamentally operates through two primary avenues. You have likely heard the oversimplified pop science terms, fight or flight versus rest and digest. However, The true architectural breakdown of your autonomic nervous system is far more sophisticated. It is divided into two main branches. First is the sympathetic branch, which aggressively floods your biology with adrenaline and cortisol, mobilizing you to respond to immediate threats. Second is the parasympathetic branch, which acts as the brake pedal, guiding your body back into a state of cellular restoration, deep connection, and creative flow. But it goes much deeper than that. Within that parasympathetic system, a brilliant researcher named Dr. Stephen Porges identified a critical bifurcation known as the polyvagal theory. He discovered the dorsal vagal state, an ancient reptilian survival response that forces you into a paralyzed, dissociated, frozen collapse when a threat is too overwhelming to fight. And conversely, he identified the ventral vagal state, the absolute pinnacle of mammalian biology. This is the biological holy grail of profound social engagement, unshakable internal safety, radical openness, and authentic human connection. And here is the ultimate secret that ties everything together. The ventral vagal state is not merely a neurological setting within your brainstem. It is, at its absolute core, an electromagnetic state. When your internal nervous system successfully anchors into a state of profound ventral vagal activation, a fascinating biometric phenomenon occurs. Your heart rate variability, HRV, which is the exact clinical metric the HeartMath Institute utilizes to scientifically measure the coherence of a human energy field, snaps into its most exquisitely organized, highest amplitude rhythm. The chaotic, jagged physiological waveform smooths out into a flawless, rhythmic oscillation. Your biomagnetic aura massively dilates. Your outgoing quantum broadcast becomes razor-sharp and crystal clear. Simply put, the ventral vagal state is the exact neurological translation of what we have been referring to as quantum coherence. They are not two different things. They are the exact same biological condition, merely described through two different scientific lexicons. One utilizes the mechanical language of cutting-edge neuroscience, while the other speaks in the dialect of electromagnetic field physics. Here is what that profound realization means for you right now. The specific exercises we have been engaged in together, the deliberate, measured breath work, the intense anchoring of your attention into your cardiac center, the intentional cultivation and outward expansion of internal warmth, are absolutely not just abstract, mystical energy practices. They are hardcore, scientifically validated ventral vagal activation protocols. Throughout the entirety of this transmission, you have been actively hijacking your own neurology. You have been forcefully rescuing your nervous system from a panicked sympathetic survival state, or a frozen dorsal vagal collapse, and intentionally guiding it directly into a state of peak ventral vagal coherence. That intense, expanding heat you physically feel blooming within your chest cavity is not just your energetic aura dilating. It is the visceral, physical sensation of your vagus nerve, the sprawling, massive cranial superhighway that directly wires your brainstem to your heart, your lungs, your digestive tract, and your facial muscles finally powering back online into a state of deeply regulated, wide-open, vibrant aliveness. This distinction is monumentally important because it proves that the massive shift you are currently undergoing is strictly biological, not merely an abstract energetic concept. It is literally taking root deep within your cellular tissues, forging brand new neural pathways, and permanently altering the physical architecture of your body. And biological transformations, once they successfully anchor into living tissue, are exponentially harder to reverse than fleeting emotional highs. When your vagus nerve operates with high vagal tone, the clinical measurement of how efficiently it can self-regulate your autonomic nervous system, it executes something miraculous to your social and electromagnetic output. It physically alters the acoustic resonance and pitch of your vocal cords. It shifts the involuntary micro-expressions dancing across your facial muscles. It literally changes the mechanical way the pupils of your eyes absorb incoming light, and how the tiny bones in your inner ear process acoustic frequencies. A human being radiating high vagal tone physically and biologically appears fundamentally different to the nervous systems of the people around them. They sound entirely different. Their physical presence carries an undeniably different gravitational pull. Because human beings evolved over millions of years to subconsciously scan each other for biological safety signals, surrounding nervous systems immediately recognize this high vagal broadcast and instinctively respond with radical openness instead of defensive guardedness, with a magnetic urge to approach rather than a primal instinct to withdraw. This is the raw, unvarnished biology behind the phenomenon of a person who effortlessly lights up a room. It is not performative charisma, extroversion, or manipulation. It is pure vagal tone. It is a deeply grounded nervous system screaming biological safety and vibrant aliveness, instantly causing every other nervous system in the room to sympathetically sigh in relief and drop their heavy armor. You are actively constructing that exact vagal tone right now, with every intentional breath we have shared, with every ounce of focused awareness you have driven into your heart center, and with every stagnant compression you have bravely allowed to evaporate. You are doing so much more than tweaking your energy field. You are physically laying the biological bricks to rebuild the physical infrastructure of your quantum broadcast. And just like electromagnetic coherence, vagal tone aggressively compounds over time. Every single time you consciously pivot back to your heart center, every time you deliberately choose expansive warmth over suffocating compression, every time you boldly command your field to radiate instead of shrinking in self-protection, your vagal tone ticks upward, and that slight, microscopic increase, when repeated 1,000 times, eventually constructs an entirely unrecognizable nervous system, an entirely new broadcast, a completely transformed timeline. This is the ultimate long game, and the clock has officially started tonight. Before we reach the conclusion of our journey, there is one final individual I need to introduce you to. Her name is Iris, and her breakthrough diverges radically from the stories of Mara and Daniel because her timeline shift was not centered around a flashy career pivot or a massive creative endeavor. It revolved around something far quieter, yet infinitely more foundational. It was about the intimate, invisible friction between her own internal biofield and the electromagnetic architecture of the physical environments she occupied. For years, Iris had astutely observed that her physical body felt drastically different, depending on the specific room she was standing in. This was not merely an emotional fluctuation. It was a visceral, physiological reaction. Inside certain environments, her chest would naturally blossom open, her respiratory rate would drop into a deep, soothing rhythm, and she felt profoundly, authentically aligned with her true self. Yet, the moment she crossed the threshold into other specific spaces, she violently contracted. Her breathing would become shallow and panicked. Her thoughts would shrink into anxious, looping spirals. Inside those environments, she felt like a tragically diminished, suffocated shadow of the vibrant woman she was when she sat alone in her sunlit kitchen on a quiet Sunday morning. For the vast majority of her adult life, she logically attributed this suffocating compression to the other human beings occupying those rooms. She blamed the chaotic energy of the crowd, the toxic vibe of the people, the clashing personalities. But then, a singular experience completely shattered her entire paradigm. One afternoon, she walked into a massive, completely empty building, a specific structure she had frequented many times before when it was packed with people, and a place where she invariably experienced that familiar, crushing contraction. As she stood in the dead silence of the vacant hall, she was horrified to realize her body was violently contracting in the exact same manner. There was not a single human soul in the building. The suffocating compression was absolutely not originating from other people. It was radiating directly from the physical space itself. What Iris had blindly stumbled into, long before she possessed the quantum vocabulary to articulate it, was a very real, scientifically measurable phenomenon. Physical spaces inherently store and broadcast their own electromagnetic histories. This text reads like a transcript from a motivational, spiritual, or mindfulness lecture. It blends terminology from physics like electromagnetism, quantum entanglement, and coherence with concepts of emotional regulation, personal presence, and intentional living. While the text uses scientific language in a metaphorical or metaphysical way rather than a literal one, the psychological and social principles underneath it are quite profound. It speaks to the very real phenomenon of how our mood, energy, and presence can influence the people and spaces around us. Here is a breakdown of the core themes presented in the passage. 1. Environmental imprints. The text suggests that physical spaces hold the emotional or energetic history of the people who inhabit them. A room where people are constantly stressed will feel tense, while a space filled with creativity and connection will feel welcoming. Psychologically, this mirrors how we pick up on social cues, body language, and the general atmosphere of a room, often called reading the room. 2. The power of your broadcast. Through the story of Iris, the passage introduces the concept of agency. Instead of walking into a room and passively absorbing its negative or stressful atmosphere, receiving, you can pause, center yourself, and intentionally project a sense of warmth and groundedness. Broadcasting. By controlling your internal state, your coherence, you actively begin to change the tone of the environment. 3. The ripple effect on daily life. The text emphasizes that this is not about grand, sweeping gestures. Instead, it is about the quiet, continuous discipline of maintaining your center in everyday places, your home, your workplace, and your daily relationships. By consistently bringing a calm, open presence to these spaces, you gradually transform them for yourself and others. 4. The window of change and recognizing signals. The final section shifts into a discussion about what happens after you change your internal state. It posits that within 3 to 7 days of this coherence shift, you will start noticing small signals, an unexpected idea, a message from an old friend, a subtle shift in a stuck situation. The text warns against dismissing these as mere coincidences, urging you to recognize them as the first signs of positive change and to actively engage with them to keep the momentum going. How would you like to explore this text further? Are you looking for a condensed summary, a deeper analysis of its concepts, or actionable ways to apply this kind of coherence to your daily routine? The individual who intimately understands these mechanics does not passively watch these anomalies float by. They actively engage. They follow the subtle, intuitive nudge. They lean into the seemingly random, unexpected conversation. They place their hand on the heavy door that is finally, miraculously beginning to creak open, and that deliberate, physical act of engagement fires a massive, reciprocal signal straight back through the quantum entanglement network. It is a biological ping that screams, "Yes, I am awake. I am paying attention. I received your transmission. Keep the momentum coming." And the infinite network immediately responds to that reciprocal confirmation with an absolute avalanche of synchronicity. The subtle signals rapidly magnify. The unexpected arrivals multiply in frequency. The physical evidence begins to aggressively stack up. The breathtaking new timeline, which was nothing but a hazy, mathematical probability distribution a mere 7 days ago, suddenly feels undeniably concrete, simply because it is literally crystallizing into your physical density. Your biofield is relentlessly broadcasting. The quantum network is continuously responding, and you are actively, fearlessly engaging with those responses. You have successfully ignited the ultimate feedback loop of manifestation, and it is accelerating you at breakneck speed directly toward the life you were always meant to inhabit. This is the hypersensitive window I need you to relentlessly monitor in the days immediately ahead. Pay fierce attention to the micro signals, the bizarre synchronicities, and the millimeter of kinetic movement in doors you were convinced had been permanently welded shut. Do not arrogantly dismiss them. Do not stubbornly cross your arms and demand a dramatic, earth-shattering miracle before you permit yourself to believe it is working. The explosive, undeniable confirmation always arrives on the heels of the small signals you chose to engage with, never the other way around. The quantum field fundamentally speaks in subtle whispers long before it ever resorts to deafening declarations. And mastering the art of hearing those whispers is the ultimate secret to this entire process. Your existence is on the precipice of total metamorphosis. This is not a motivational platitude, and it is not happening because I am simply telling you it will. It is happening because your biological field is actively ripping it into existence as we speak. The timeline shift is already violently in motion. The specific reality that perfectly mirrors your uncompromised, natural frequency is not hiding decades away in some distant, unreachable future. It is hovering right here, right now, existing in a state of perfect quantum superposition directly on top of the room you are sitting in. It has simply been waiting for your internal broadcast to finally breach the energetic threshold required to collapse it into physical reality. And you are crossing that ultimate event horizon right now. In this exact breath, in this undeniable, radiating warmth expanding within your chest cavity, a warmth that has been patiently burning there your entire life, just waiting for you to finally notice it, honor it, and call it by its true name. Your biomagnetic field is fully online. Your transmission is deafeningly clear. Your unique, unrepeatable harmonic signature is currently ripping through the zero-point field in every conceivable direction, traversing time and space in this exact millisecond. And the infinite architecture of the universe is already frantically reassembling itself to honor your command. You successfully jumped timelines tonight. You did not achieve this because of an algorithm, or because you happened to click on a specific video. You achieved this because of the sheer, uncompromising power of what you finally chose to broadcast. You achieved this because you finally remembered who you actually are beneath the suffocating layers of trauma and the exhausting conditioning you were taught to desperately cling to. Welcome back to your own blinding light. It was never extinguished. You were simply convinced to wear a blindfold. If this transmission penetrated your armor and found you at the exact right moment in your evolution, I strongly urge you to return to this practice in the liminal, highly permeable spaces of your day, in the profound stillness of the early dawn, or in the quiet twilight just before you drift into sleep, when your vagal tone is peaking and this deep coherence can anchor itself permanently into your cellular memory. Furthermore, if you recognize a soul in your orbit who is tragically dimming their own brilliance when they absolutely shouldn't be, send this signal to them. When you actively spark another human being's awareness of their own suppressed power, the resulting resonance exponentially amplifies both of your auras, and the collective luminosity of our entire planetary field surges forward. That energetic ripple matters infinitely more than you can possibly comprehend. Now, go radiate. Do not do it out of a heavy sense of spiritual obligation. Do it because it is your fundamental, undeniable biology. The universe, your specific, personalized reality that meticulously assembles itself around your singular, extraordinary electromagnetic signature, has been waiting lifetimes for you to finally realize that your time is right now.